Guys, stop what you are doing. Seriously. Just take a deep breath. Think about the oldest thing you have ever touched.
Maybe a coin your grandfather gave you, or an artifact in a museum. Perhaps something 1,000 years old. That feels ancient, right? That feels like the dust of history.
Now I want you to stretch your mind, because 1,000 years is nothing. 1,000 years is just a blink. Tonight, we are going deeper. We are stepping outside the fleeting, frantic timeline of human existence and into the realm of deep time, a place where life moves so slowly, so deliberately, that it measures its existence not in centuries, but in the epochs of civilization. We are hunting for the true, silent witnesses of human history, the organisms that were already here, already rooted, already growing, when the pyramids of Giza were being stacked. The living monuments that watched the rise and fall of empires, the invention of the wheel, the birth of modern agriculture, and the entirety of recorded human history. These aren't fossils, guys. These are living, breathing things.
They are the oldest souls on Earth, and they have secrets to tell if we are patient enough to listen. Welcome back to the channel. I am so thrilled you decided to join me for what I truly believe is one of the most profound journeys we have ever taken together. This is Living Monuments, the 5,000-year-old organisms that witnessed human history. Before we dive headfirst into the ancient dust and the cold, dark oceans to meet these incredible beings, I need your help, as always. If you are excited by the idea of deep time, if the thought of a life that spans 5 millennia gives you chills, please hit that like button right now.
Share this video with someone who needs to slow down and think about the big picture. And if you haven't already joined our community, please smash that subscribe button and activate the bell button for notifications for our new videos. We have so much more deep dive content planned, and you don't want to miss a single second of it. And speaking of deep time, here is tonight's comment question. If you could sit beside one of these 5,000-year-old organisms and ask it one question about the human story, what would that question be?
Let me know in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious to see what historical mysteries you want solved by the oldest witnesses. 5,000 years ago, the world was barely recognizable.
The Bronze Age was just kicking off in Mesopotamia. Writing systems were rudimentary. Most of the world was untouched wilderness. Yet, in scattered, often desolate corners of the planet, life had already mastered the art of survival, slowing its metabolism to a crawl, perfecting a stoicism that defied every disaster nature could throw at it. Our journey begins where many journeys into extreme longevity begin, high up, where the air is thin, the soil is poor,
and the conditions are so punishing that only the most resilient can survive. We are traveling to the White Mountains of California, specifically to the Inyo National Forest, home to the ancient Bristlecone pine forest.
Imagine a landscape that looks less like a forest and more like a graveyard of giants. These trees are gnarled, twisted, and scarred, their trunks often stripped bare by thousands of years of wind and ice, leaving only a thin ribbon of living bark to sustain them. They look less like living organisms and more like abstract sculptures carved by the very hand of time itself.
And yet they live. The bristlecone pine, Pinus aristata, or Pinus longeva, is perhaps the most famous living monument on the planet. They don't grow tall and straight like the redwoods. They grow slowly, densely, packing their wood so tightly with resin that it becomes almost immune to rot, disease, and insects.
This dense, resinous structure is their secret weapon. When the tree dies, the wood often remains standing for thousands of years more, refusing to decompose, a testament to its incredible density. But among these ancient, twisted sentinels, there is one that held the undisputed title for decades: Methuselah.
Located somewhere in this protected grove, its exact location guarded fiercely by researchers to protect it from human interference, Methuselah is a non-clonal organism, meaning it grew from a single seed, making it one of the oldest known individual trees on Earth. When it was officially dated through core sampling, scientists discovered that Methuselah sprouted approximately 4,850 years ago. Think about that.
When Methuselah was just a sapling, King Tut was still centuries in the future. When the Roman Empire fell, Methuselah had already been alive for 3,000 years, silently drawing water and nutrients from the cold, dry ground. Its lifespan is so immense that it forced us to redefine how long a complex organism could possibly survive.
Its predecessor, tragically, was another bristlecone named Prometheus, which was accidentally cut down in 1964 for research purposes, before its true age, estimated at 4,900 years, was fully realized. A devastating loss, but one that cemented the importance of protecting these slow-motion giants. The secret to the bristlecone's success is its struggle.
It thrives in adversity. In these high-altitude, arid environments, they grow incredibly slowly, sometimes adding less than an inch of girth in a century. This slow growth creates the incredibly dense, resilient wood.
They don't waste energy on rapid growth. They conserve everything, existing in a state of perpetual, patient survival. They teach us that sometimes the slowest path is the longest path. They teach us that resilience comes from density, not speed.
But if trees represent the visible, upright witnesses of deep time, then our next living monument is something far more vast, far more ancient, and almost completely hidden from view. We are leaving the arid heights of California and heading north, deep into the temperate rainforests of the Pacific Northwest. specifically to the Malheur National Forest in Oregon. We are going hunting for a single organism that covers over 2,200 acres. An organism that is not a plant, not an animal, but a fungus. Forget everything you think you know about mushrooms. The little cap and stem you see popping up after a rainstorm, that's just the fruiting body, the temporary reproductive structure. The true organism, the main body, is a vast, subterranean network of white, thread-like structures called mycelium. This is the internet of the forest, weaving through the soil, recycling nutrients, and connecting the entire ecosystem. And in Oregon, one specific species of honey mushroom, Armillaria ostoyae, has achieved truly shocking dimensions and longevity. Scientists affectionately call it the humongous fungus. It is, by mass and area, the largest single organism currently known on Earth. Imagine walking through a forest of trees, knowing that every single tree is rooted above a single, unified being that stretches for miles in every direction. This fungus is a parasite, slowly feeding off the roots of the trees in the forest, creating what are known as fruiting rings where the mushrooms appear. But the real story is its age. By sampling the organism across its vast range and using genetic analysis to confirm that all the samples belonged to one single clonal individual, researchers estimated the age of this Oregon behemoth. The range is astonishingly wide, but the conservative estimates put this fungus at least 2,400 years old. The higher estimates, based on its slow growth rate, push its age back to a staggering 8,650 years. 8,000 years. If that higher estimate is correct, this single organism was already thousands of years old when Methuselah the pine tree first sprouted. It predates the invention of pottery, the domestication of horses, and the very foundations of human civilization. It has been silently growing, inch by inch, spreading its thread-like network beneath the moss and the soil, waiting, observing, recycling. Unlike the bristlecone pine, which is an individual organism fighting the elements, the Armillaria ostoyae is a vast, interconnected collective, a single genetic entity that has survived by simply refusing to die, constantly regenerating its network. Its slow, steady expansion underground is the ultimate testament to biological persistence. It has witnessed continental climate shifts, multiple ice ages, and the entire span of human development, from the hunter-gatherer era to the digital age, all while remaining unseen, the quiet sovereign of the forest floor. The challenge of deep time here is scale. We struggle to comprehend a single tree living for 5,000 years. How do we comprehend a single organism that covers thousands of acres, living for 8,000 years, existing beneath our feet without us ever truly seeing it? It forces us to ask, what else is down there? What other silent giants are we walking over every single day? We have traveled high into the mountains and deep into the forest floor. But to find the final category of truly ancient life, we must go to the place where time seems to stand still entirely, the deep ocean. The deep sea is the ultimate cold storage unit. Temperatures are stable, light is non-existent, and the pressure is immense.
Life here is characterized by extreme efficiency and extreme slowness. And here, in the cold, dark waters off the coast of Hawaii, scientists have discovered organisms that rival the longevity of the bristlecone pines, but move with the agonizing slowness of geological time. We are talking about deep-sea corals. When we think of coral, we usually picture the vibrant, shallow-water reefs, the colorful, fast-growing structures of the tropics. But deep-sea corals, which live far below the sunlight zone, are built differently. They are often black, white, or golden, and they grow at an almost imperceptible rate, sometimes adding only a fraction of a millimeter of skeletal material per year.
This slow growth is the key to their immense age. In 2009, researchers studying black corals, specifically species in the genus Laopathes off the coast of Oahu, used radiocarbon dating on the skeletons of these majestic, tree-like structures. They weren't dating the individual polyps, the tiny living animals on the surface, but the core skeleton, the calcium carbonate structure that the colony builds over millennia. The results were astonishing. They found that some of these coral colonies had skeletons dating back over 4,265 years. Think about the environment. These corals are rooted to the basalt rock, thousands of feet beneath the surface, feeding on sparse plankton that drifts down from above. They are filter feeders, existing in a state of near-perfect metabolic equilibrium, conserving every joule of energy, never moving, never changing their position. They are fixed points in a constantly moving ocean. When these corals began their slow climb upward, the Minoan civilization was flourishing on Crete. They were already ancient when the classical Greeks were discussing philosophy. And unlike the bristlecone pine, which is a single individual, or the armillaria fungus, which is a single sprawling clone, these corals are colonies. They are comprised of thousands of genetically identical polyps, constantly budding and replacing themselves, building upon the skeletal remains of their ancestors. This makes them, in a sense, immortal, constantly renewing the living tissue on top of the ancient foundation. The life of a deep-sea coral is defined by stability. No storms, no sunlight, no seasonal changes. Just cold, dark, silent persistence. They are the ultimate embodiment of deep time, because they demonstrate that if you can achieve perfect equilibrium with your environment, time ceases to be a threat and becomes merely a medium for slow, deliberate growth. They are the record keepers of the deep, their skeletons serving as perfect archives of ocean chemistry and temperature, spanning the entire history of modern human civilization. They show us that some of the greatest living monuments are found not in the light, but in the deepest shadows of our planet. So we have established our cast of characters: the bristlecone pine, the enduring individual; the Armillaria ostoya, the vast hidden collective; and the deep sea coral, the silent, slow-motion colony. What unites these three seemingly disparate forms of life? It is their mastery of resilience through slowness. They have all found ways to minimize metabolic activity, to conserve energy, and to use the very harshness of their environment, whether it is high-altitude cold, nutrient-poor soil, or deep-sea pressure, as a shield against the rapid changes that destroy faster-growing life. They teach us a crucial lesson about time. For humans, time is a finite resource, something to be maximized, hurried, and feared. For these monuments, time is infinite. Time is the medium in which they perfect their existence. But our journey is just beginning. Now that we have met the oldest living things, we need to understand how they do it. We need to look deeper into the dendrochronology of the pines, the genetics of the fungi, and the chemistry of the corals. We are going to explore the cutting-edge science that is unlocking the secrets of extreme longevity, secrets that might one day inform our own understanding of aging. We are going to ask, what happens when a biological clock slows down so much that 5,000 years feels like a season?
Stick with me, guys. This is going to be an incredible, humbling hour. Let's dive back into the dust of the ancient world and the cold of the deep sea.
We are going to meet the other contenders for the title of the world's oldest life, including clonal colonies of quaking aspens that stretch for miles, and the mysterious Antarctic sponges, whose lifespans are measured in tens of thousands of years. But first, let's take a closer look at the environment that forged the bristlecone pine. We need to understand the concept of biological density and why struggling to survive is actually the ultimate strategy for immortality. All right, buckle up, because we're about to put on our metaphorical mountaineering gear and ascend to the absolute limit of life. We're talking about the bristlecone pine's home turf, the high-altitude, desolate, and incredibly beautiful environment that exists above 10,000 feet. If you look at a thriving forest, what do you see? Competition. Trees fighting for sunlight, roots battling for water, disease jumping from branch to branch. It's a biological free-for-all, a dense, cutthroat metropolis of life. Now look at the White Mountains of California, or the Great Basin ranges where these pines live. The air is thin. The growing season lasts maybe 2 months. The soil is poor dolomite, a white, rocky, nutrient-deficient nightmare, and the wind is relentlessly savage. This is where the magic happens.
This is the concept of low biological density. There are no neighbors to spread disease.
There are no massive undergrowth thickets to fuel a devastating forest fire. There are no fat, happy competitors stealing the scarce water. The bristlecone pine, facing such extreme environmental stress, adopts a strategy of absolute minimalism.
It grows excruciatingly slowly. We're talking about growth rings so tight you need a microscope to count them accurately. A bristlecone pine might grow less than an inch in diameter over 100 years.
That slow growth is the secret sauce. By minimizing metabolic activity, by barely growing at all, the tree minimizes the accumulation of harmful byproducts, minimizes its vulnerability to fungal infections, and most importantly, it minimizes the energy spent on maintenance. It's the ultimate biological tightwad.
Think of it this way. A fast-growing redwood is like a sprawling modern city. Lots of energy, lots of growth, but high risk of collapse and traffic jams. A bristlecone pine is like a medieval stone fortress, slow to build, incredibly resilient, and designed to withstand a siege that lasts millennia. The segmented immortality strategy. But how does a single organism survive 5,000 years without one catastrophic failure? The answer is mind-blowing, and it's called segmental architecture. Most trees rely on a continuous, unified system. If the trunk is damaged or a major root is compromised, the whole tree is usually toast.
The bristlecone pine, however, has evolved to be a collection of semi-independent, self-sustaining segments. Look closely at an ancient bristlecone. You'll notice that 90% of the trunk is often dead, weathered wood. The famous driftwood look that makes them so photogenic. But running up that dead trunk is usually a single thin living strip of bark, xylem and phloem, sometimes only a few inches wide. This strip connects one or two living branches, maybe on the north side, to a few key roots below. If the roots on the south side die because of drought or erosion, the tree doesn't panic. It simply shuts down the corresponding vascular strip and sacrifices the branches connected to those roots. It seals off the damage, essentially amputating a limb to save the body. It can live for centuries with only one tiny functional connection between the roots and the crown. It's biological risk management at its finest. It doesn't need to be 100% alive to be immortal. It just needs to keep one viable path open. What do you guys think of this strategy?
Is sacrificing parts of yourself the ultimate key to long-term survival? Let me know in the comments below. And while you're down there, seriously, if you are finding this deep dive into extreme longevity fascinating, do me a favor and smash that like button.
It helps these ancient secrets reach more people who need to know how resilient life truly is. Now we shift gears dramatically. We move from the single, isolated fortress of the bristlecone pine to something entirely different. The collective, the massive, the sprawling organism known as Pando. Pando is located in Utah, and it's not a single tree. It's an entire forest. It's a clonal colony of quaking aspen, Populus tremuloides. The name Pando means "I spread" in Latin, and spread it does. This colony covers 106 acres and consists of approximately 47,000 individual genetically identical stems or trunks, all connected by one massive shared root system. If the bristlecone is the world's oldest individual tree, Pando is arguably the world's oldest and heaviest organism. We're talking about an estimated 6 million kilograms of biomass, all belonging to one single entity. The individual stems above ground usually only live for about 100 to 150 years, relatively short lives for a tree. But when a stem dies, the root system simply sprouts a new one. The individual trees are like temporary, replaceable leaves on an eternal, subterranean giant.
How old is this giant? This is where the numbers get truly staggering and slightly speculative. Scientists use core samples and growth rates to estimate the age of the root system.
The conservative, highly evidenced estimate places Pando's age at around 14,000 years. This means Pando started spreading its roots shortly after the last major North American glaciation. It watched the ice retreat. But some researchers, using genetic mutation rates and geological data, have pushed the potential age far higher, maybe 80,000 years, or even, potentially, 1,000,000 years. If Pando is 1,000,000 years old, it's not just a witness to human history. It's a witness to the evolution of Homo sapiens itself. It was here before we figured out fire, before we perfected stone tools, before we left Africa. This begs a fundamental philosophical question. If the above-ground parts die and are replaced, but the genetic identity and the core root structure remain, does Pando count as an individual?
And if it does, doesn't it dwarf the longevity of the bristlecone pine? It changes our understanding of immortality. Immortality for Pando isn't about resisting death. It's about constantly replacing the dying parts.
It's an endless cycle of regeneration, fueled by one ancient soul. The modern tragedy of the ancient giant. Despite its incredible age and resilience, Pando is currently facing a crisis, and it highlights a crucial point about these living monuments. They are perfectly adapted to the ancient world, but not necessarily to the modern one. Pando is shrinking. The replacement cycle is failing. Why? Because of us, of course, but not in the way you might think. The issue is recruitment failure. New stems are constantly trying to sprout from the massive root system, but they are being eaten almost immediately by deer and elk. For centuries, Pando coexisted with wildlife, but human activities, specifically the suppression of natural predators like wolves and bears, have led to an overpopulation of grazers. When a wolf is around, the deer move frequently and graze lightly. When the predators are gone, the deer settle in
and systematically browse every new aspen sprout down to the ground. Pando is literally unable to grow new replacement stems, and the old ones are dying off.
The average age of the stems is increasing, and the colony is slowly fragmenting. Scientists are now trying desperate measures, including building massive fences around sections of Pando to give the new sprouts a chance to grow tall enough to survive the browsing. Imagine, the million-year-old organism needs a chain-link fence to survive the 21st century.
It's a powerful reminder that stability doesn't guarantee permanence. The oldest things on Earth are often the most fragile when their delicate, millennia-old ecological balance is disrupted. If you know someone who loves nature or conservation, share this video with them. Pando needs all the awareness it can get. Diving deep, the slow-motion life of Antarctic sponges. We've seen the high desert and the temperate forest. Now, let's go to the absolute opposite extreme. The crushing pressure, the permanent darkness, and the near-freezing temperatures of the deep Antarctic Ocean. This is where we meet the next contender for the title of Earth's oldest non-clonal life, the Antarctic glass sponges, specifically species like Anoxycalyx jubini. Sponges are often overlooked. They look like rocks or decorative bathroom accessories, but they are some of the most basal, successful multicellular animals on the planet. And in the frigid, stable environment beneath the Antarctic ice shelves, they achieve truly mind-boggling lifespans. In the deep sea, there are no seasons, no weather changes, and the temperature is a constant, steady -1.1. 8 degrees Celsius, 28.8 degrees Fahrenheit. This extreme stability, combined with the cold, triggers the ultimate longevity mechanism, metabolic suppression. When it is that cold, every biological process slows to a crawl. Cell division, nutrient uptake, waste expulsion. It all happens in agonizing slow motion. These sponges grow so slowly that they are practically frozen in time. Researchers have attempted to date these colossal, vase-shaped glass sponges using techniques like radioisotope dating and measuring the incorporation of oxygen isotopes into their silica skeletons. The results are astounding. Some estimates suggest lifespans of 15,000 years. Yes, 15,000 years. Think about that. When that Antarctic sponge was a tiny larva settling on the seabed, the last ice age was still in full swing. Woolly mammoths were roaming the northern hemisphere. Human civilization as we know it didn't even exist. These sponges have been filtering the same cold water since the Paleolithic era. The conservative estimate for the maximum age of these glass sponges is around 10,000 years, placing them firmly in the realm of the oldest continuous life we can measure. But even the 15,000-year estimate is often debated as being too low. Some scientists speculate that in the most stable, resource-limited areas, their lifespans could stretch to 40,000 years or more. Why is this so difficult to confirm? Because you can't exactly tag a sponge and wait 15,000 years to see if it dies. We rely on proxy measurements, and those slow growth rings tell a story of unimaginable patience. These sponges are the ultimate deep-sea time travelers, proving that sometimes the best way to live forever is simply to slow down everything until time barely moves at all. The unkillable microbes, cryptobiosis, and the zombie bacteria. We've seen trees that sacrifice parts, clonal colonies that replace themselves, and sponges that live in slow motion. But what about life that simply refuses to die, not by living slowly, but by effectively hitting the pause button? We need to talk about cryptobiosis, the ultimate state of suspended animation, and the champions of this trick, the microscopic organisms. Take the famous tardigrade, or water bear. We all love these little 8-legged guys. They are famous for surviving extreme heat, cold, radiation, and even the vacuum of space. But their mechanism for longevity is cryptobiosis. They can dry out, retract their limbs, and form a protective metabolic shell called a ton. In this state, their metabolism drops to less than 0.01% of normal. In 2016, scientists successfully revived 2 tardigrades that had been frozen in moss samples for over 30 years. They woke up, stretched, and started reproducing. 30 years in suspended animation is impressive for a tiny animal, but it's just the warm-up act. The real longevity record holders are the bacteria trapped in permafrost and deep geological formations. In Siberia and Antarctica, vast stretches of ground have been frozen solid for hundreds of thousands of years. Scientists drill into this permafrost and find microbial life, bacteria and archaea, that are still viable. In one famous case, researchers revived bacteria found in the gut of a mastodon, frozen in Siberian permafrost for an estimated 5 million years. When warmed up in the lab, the bacteria, named Bacillus F, woke up and began reproducing. Wait, what? A creature that potentially hasn't lived, metabolized, or grown for 3.5 million years suddenly decides to get back to work? This completely shatters our standard definition of lifespan. Are these organisms 3.5 million years old, or did their life merely pause? If the biological machinery remains intact, ready to restart, is that not a form of effective immortality? This isn't just a fun fact. It has profound implications for understanding life on other planets. If terrestrial microbes can survive millions of years frozen solid, the chances of finding dormant, ancient life on Mars or in the ice crusts of Europa just skyrocketed. And speaking of profound implications, if you don't want to miss our next segment, where we discuss organisms that achieve true biological immortality by never aging, make sure you hit that notification bell right now.
You won't want to miss the jellyfish that literally reverts its life cycle.
The deep biosphere, life beyond the sun.
Let's stay underground for a moment, because the oldest life on Earth might not be on the surface at all. It resides in what scientists call the deep biosphere.
This is the vast, hidden ecosystem that exists kilometers below the surface of the Earth, extending into the crust, living in cracks and pores in the rock, completely isolated from sunlight, oxygen, and surface nutrients. This is a world fueled by chemosynthesis, eating rocks and chemical reactions. It's an environment of extremes: high pressure, high heat, and virtually no food. The organisms that live here, mostly specialized bacteria and archaea, exist in a state of near-zero energy. They are so nutrient-starved that their cell division rates are measured in millennia, not minutes or hours. A team of international researchers recently studied microbes found 5 kilometers beneath the seafloor. They found evidence that these organisms had been metabolizing and dividing, albeit incredibly slowly, for tens of millions of years. Think about the longevity challenge here.
A cell needs energy to repair DNA damage. And DNA damage. A cell needs energy to repair DNA damage. And DNA damage accumulates over time. If a cell is dividing only once every 10,000 years, that means it must have DNA repair mechanisms that are virtually flawless, maintaining integrity over timescales that are geological. One specific discovery involved a bacterium found deep beneath the Pacific Ocean floor that was estimated to have been isolated from the surface for 101 years.
5 million years. If we define oldest life as the continuous,
uninterrupted existence of a specific genetic lineage. These deep-sea, rock-eating microbes may well be the true champions. They aren't in cryptobiosis. They are simply living incredibly slowly, witnessing the entire history of the dinosaurs, the rise of mammals, and the formation of continents, all while munching on sulfur deep below the seabed. This deep biosphere represents a volume of life potentially equivalent to all the life on the surface combined. It's Earth's hidden, ancient, slow-motion engine, teaching us that life can persist almost indefinitely, provided it asks for almost nothing. It makes you wonder, what other forms of longevity are hiding in plain sight, just waiting for us to dig deep enough? Now, let's pivot away from organisms that live long by slowing down or replacing parts, and look at the select few that seem to defy aging entirely. We're talking about true biological immortality, or negligible senescence. Enter the Hydra. Not the mythical multi-headed beast, but a tiny freshwater cynarian, a relative of jellyfish and sea anemones. The Hydra is famous in gerontology because, under laboratory conditions, it appears to be functionally immortal. It does not exhibit the typical signs of aging or senescence that plague nearly every other multicellular organism. It doesn't get weaker, it doesn't lose reproductive capacity, and its mortality rate doesn't increase with chronological age. Why? Because the Hydra is almost entirely made of stem cells. In human biology, stem cells are specialized cells that can divide and differentiate into various other cell types. We have them, but they decrease in effectiveness as we age. The Hydra, however, is a constantly regenerating sac of pure potential. Its body column is a continuous conveyor belt of stem cells. Cells at the center are constantly dividing and pushing the older cells out to the tentacles or the foot, where they are eventually shed. The Hydra is essentially replacing its entire cellular structure every few weeks.
It's like Pando, but on a microscopic cellular level. Every part of the Hydra is perpetually new. It bypasses aging by never allowing old cells to accumulate.
Scientists have kept Hydra colonies for years and years, and they simply refuse to age. There's no biological clock ticking down. The only thing that kills a Hydra is environmental catastrophe, starvation, disease, or being eaten.
If those external factors are controlled, the Hydra just keeps going. This tiny, unassuming creature holds one of the biggest keys to understanding human longevity. If we could unlock the secrets of its hyper-efficient stem cell maintenance, the implications for anti-aging medicine would be revolutionary.
What do you think, guys? Would you trade your current body for one that is constantly regenerating like a Hydra? Tell me your thoughts. And if you're enjoying this journey through biological extremes, remember to hit that subscribe button. We've got so much more to cover. including the true champion of immortality. The champion, Turritopsis dohrnii, the reversing jellyfish. We started with trees that live for millennia, moved to colonies that live for tens of thousands of years, and looked at microbes that pause life for millions of years.
Now we arrive at the organism that has earned the title the immortal jellyfish, Turritopsis dohrnii. This small jellyfish, about the size of a pinky fingernail, has mastered the art of biological time travel. It doesn't just resist aging like the Hydra, it reverses it.
When a typical jellyfish reaches the end of its life cycle, after reproducing, or when facing environmental stress, injury, or old age, it dies. Turritopsis dohrnii says nope. Instead of dying, it undergoes a process called transdifferentiation. It retracts its tentacles, its bell shrivels, and it sinks to the seabed. It then transforms back into its juvenile stage, the polyp. The cells essentially rewind. Muscle cells become nerve cells, or nerve cells become egg cells, and the jellyfish resets its biological clock entirely. It goes from being an old adult back to a young, newborn polyp, ready to grow up and repeat the cycle again. It is, biologically speaking, the ultimate reset button. It can do this indefinitely. An adult jellyfish can turn back into a polyp, and that polyp can grow back into an adult, and then turn back into a polyp again. It's an endless loop of biological reincarnation, all within the same individual. The only way to truly kill T. dohrnii is to crush it or feed it to something else. If left alone, it is functionally immortal. This is not just longevity. This is a defiance of the entire concept of the linear life cycle. It forces us to redefine what we mean by death and age. The scientific community is intensely studying the genetic mechanisms behind this reversal. If we can understand the signaling pathways that allow a specialized cell to revert its identity and become a blank slate again, we could potentially unlock regeneration capabilities far beyond what we currently imagine. It's truly incredible that the secrets to eternal youth are held by a tiny, translucent blob floating in the ocean. This raises a crucial question that ties all these organisms together, from the bristlecone pine to the immortal jellyfish. If life can be immortal, why isn't it the norm? Why do we, and most other complex animals, age and die? The answer lies in the harsh reality of evolutionary trade-offs. Immortality is expensive. For the bristlecone pine, the cost of longevity is incredibly slow growth and low reproductive output. It takes hundreds of years to reach reproductive maturity, and it invests all its energy into defense and maintenance, not expansion. For the Antarctic sponge, the cost is a metabolism so slow it barely registers. It can't react quickly to change, and it can't colonize new areas rapidly. For the Hydra and the immortal jellyfish, the cost is simplicity.
They are relatively simple organisms, without complex organ systems, specialized tissues, or a centralized brain. They can afford to be constantly regenerating because they don't have to maintain a complex, highly specialized machine like a human body, which requires massive energy input and creates endless waste byproducts. Evolution favors organisms that can reproduce quickly and effectively in their current environment.
If resources are abundant, it's better to grow fast, reproduce often, and die young, ensuring your genes spread rapidly. This is the strategy of the rabbit, the mouse, or the annual plant. Senescence, aging and death, is an evolutionary strategy designed to clear out the old, less fit individuals and make room for the new, genetically improved generation. Death facilitates adaptation. These long-lived organisms we've been discussing, the bristlecone, Pando, the sponges, are not following the reproduce fast strategy. They are following the endure all strategy. They exist in environments where resources are so scarce or conditions so stable that survival is a matter of pure patience, not speed. It's a beautiful illustration of life finding every possible niche for success. Whether it's the frantic, fast-paced life of a fruit fly or the geological patience of a deep-sea microbe, every strategy works, but only the patient ones get to witness the rise and fall of empires. We have now traveled across continents and oceans, from high mountain deserts to the deep biosphere, meeting life forms that stretch the very boundaries of time. But our journey isn't over yet. We still need to discuss the specific genetic markers that allow these organisms to repair DNA damage over millennia. And we need to explore the potential for engineered human longevity based on these findings. Stay with me, because next up, we're dissecting the DNA of the Methuselahs and the implications for our own future. All right, buckle up, because we are officially crossing the threshold from natural history into bioengineering and the future of humanity. We've looked at the giants, the hidden colonies, and the slow-motion survivors. Now it's time to get microscopic. We are going straight into the nucleus, dissecting the very code that allows these organisms, our living monuments, to laugh in the face of entropy for 5 millennia or more. Remember how we talked about aging being essentially a buildup of errors? Think of your DNA as a massive instruction manual. Every time a cell divides, or every time you get hit by a UV ray or a free radical, that manual gets smudged, ripped, or incorrectly copied. In us, those errors accumulate, leading to senescence, disease, and eventually death. But the Methuselahs, they have the most advanced, high-efficiency copy editing and repair systems ever devised. We're talking about biological perfection, honed over billions of years. Dissecting the DNA of the Methuselahs, the hyper-efficient repair pathways. The first major discovery scientists made when sequencing the genomes of the oldest organisms, from the clonal fungi in the deep subsurface to the ancient desert shrubs, was not a single immortality gene, but rather a dramatic overexpression of genes dedicated to DNA repair and stress response. Let's talk pathways. Specifically, the base excision repair and nucleotide excision repair. These are the cellular cleanup crews that exist in all of us. But in organisms like the bristlecone pine, the machinery is cranked up to 11. They are constantly scanning, identifying damaged bases, those smudges on the manual, cutting them out, and synthesizing the correct replacement piece, often using redundancy built into their own genome structure. Take the fungi, for instance. Many of these massively long-lived fungal networks are polyploid, meaning they have multiple complete sets of chromosomes. If one set gets damaged beyond repair, they literally have a backup copy ready to go.
It's like having 3 spare tires and a full mechanic shop inside every cell. For a single trunk tree, the bristlecone pine, the redundancy comes from localized, highly efficient repair enzymes working in concert with powerful antioxidant production. And speaking of hyper-efficiency, we have to mention the champion of DNA repair, Deinococcus radiodurans.
While it's not 5,000 years old, its mechanisms are the gold standard. It can survive radiation levels that would instantly turn every other known life form into soup. How? It has several copies of its genome, but more importantly, it utilizes an extremely robust system of homologous recombination, a process where it flawlessly reassembles shattered DNA fragments, like putting together a million-piece puzzle perfectly under immense pressure. Scientists are now actively looking at the specific proteins, the Rec-A protein, for example, that mediate this process, asking, can we humanize that level of repair? If you are learning something mind-blowing about how nature cheats death, do me a huge favor and smash that like button right now. It tells YouTube that this deep dive into biolongevity is worth sharing with the world. The role of chaperones, preventing cellular rust. Beyond fixing the DNA itself, these organisms are masters at managing the cellular environment. Aging isn't just DNA damage, it's also the accumulation of misfolded proteins. Think of proteins as tiny machines. If they fold incorrectly, they gum up the works, leading to cellular toxicity, what we call junk buildup. The Methuselahs heavily rely on a class of proteins called molecular chaperones, particularly heat shock proteins, HSPs. Despite the name, HSPs aren't just for heat. They are the cellular bodyguards that maintain protein homeostasis. In the ancient deep-sea sponges, living in frigid, slow-motion environments, these chaperones are constantly working to ensure that every protein stays perfectly functional, minimizing the aggregate damage that plagues human cells over decades. In the Posidonia oceanica seagrass, which forms massive clonal colonies stretching back millennia. The expression of these chaperone genes is significantly higher than in shorter-lived related species. They are proactively preventing cellular rust, essentially keeping their internal machinery oiled and running smoothly for geological timespans. This proactive maintenance is key.
It's not just reacting to damage, it's preventing the damage from becoming chronic in the first place. The metabolic trick, life in the slow lane. We also cannot ignore the fundamental difference in pace. For many of these organisms, especially the deep biosphere bacteria and fungi, and the extremely slow-growing trees like the Patagonian cypress, life is conducted at an almost imperceptible crawl.
Their metabolic rate is vastly suppressed. Why is this important? Because metabolism, the process of turning food into energy, is inherently messy. It produces highly reactive byproducts, specifically reactive oxygen species, or free radicals. These are the primary culprits behind oxidative stress, which attacks DNA, proteins, and lipids. If you slow down the energy burn, you drastically reduce the production of cellular toxins. Imagine a human heart beating 70 times a minute for 80 years. Now imagine an organism whose effective cellular division rate is once every century, and whose internal energy consumption is near zero. The cumulative exposure to oxidative stress is exponentially lower. The deep biosphere microbes, the ones surviving thousands of feet below ground, exist in a state approaching cryptobiosis, a near-death pause. They might only divide every few thousand years. They are immortal by simply refusing to participate in the rapid cycle of life and death we experience.
This raises a fascinating question for you all in the comments. If you could choose to live 5,000 years, but everything you did had to be in slow motion, taking 100 times longer than normal, would you take that deal? Let me know below. Bridging the gap from ancient trees to human gene therapy. Now, let's get into the stuff that really matters to us. Can we steal these biological secrets?
Can we use the hyper-efficient DNA repair systems of the Methuselahs to engineer radical human longevity? The answer, thrillingly, is maybe. And the research is exploding right now. The primary targets for engineered human longevity, inspired by these ancient life forms, fall into three categories. 1. Enhancing endogenous repair mechanisms. We already have BER and NER pathways. The goal isn't to invent new ones, but to supercharge the ones we have. Scientists are looking at using gene therapy, specifically delivery systems like AAV vectors, to introduce hyper-efficient variants of key repair enzymes, like DNA polymerase beta or specialized ligases, into human stem cells. If we can make our stem cell populations, the cells that replenish our tissues, as robust and damage-resistant as those in a 5,000-year-old fungus,
we could potentially halt the age-related decline of tissue regeneration. Furthermore, there is immense interest in the specific pathways used by the desert plants to manage environmental stress.
They produce unique metabolites, powerful antioxidants, and specialized resins that protect the cell from the outside in. Identifying the genes responsible for producing these super antioxidants and engineering human cells to express them could provide an unprecedented level of protection against environmental damage and inflammation. Mastering telomere maintenance without cancer. We all know about telomeres, the caps on the ends of our chromosomes that shorten with every division, acting as a cellular countdown clock. Many long-lived organisms, particularly clonal plants, maintain telomere length indefinitely using the enzyme telomerase. In humans, turning up telomerase is dangerous. It's a hallmark of cancer cells. The challenge is decoupling telomere maintenance from oncogenesis, the creation of tumors. The Methuselahs offer a clue. They often use alternative lengthening pathways, ALT, or they possess superior mechanisms to suppress malignancy, even while maintaining telomere length. Research is focusing on how these organisms manage cell cycle control and apoptosis, programmed death cell, so efficiently that they can maintain youthful telomeres without succumbing to uncontrolled growth. If we can replicate their tumor suppression mechanisms, the door to safe, widespread telomerase activation swings wide open. 3. Engineered dormancy, the ultimate life hack. This is where it gets truly sci-fi, inspired directly by the deep biosphere microbes and ancient seeds we discussed earlier. If aging is the result of accumulated damage over time, the most effective way to stop aging is to stop time itself. We are talking about engineered, reversible human cryptobiosis. Imagine a future where we can induce a state of ultra-low metabolism, a deep protective dormancy that virtually halts all cellular processes, including aging. This isn't just cryogenic freezing, which causes immense damage upon thawing. This is a biologically controlled shutdown, inspired by the fungi that survive for geological eras by simply waiting. This concept has immediate, profound applications. Trauma stabilization, putting a critically injured person into pause mode until they can reach a specialized medical facility. Space travel, enabling crewed missions to distant stars by eliminating the need for life support and preventing aging during multi-century journeys. The biological mechanisms required, stabilizing cell membranes against desiccation, utilizing specialized antifreeze proteins, and achieving near-zero energy states, are all actively expressed in the Methuselahs we've studied. They are the living blueprints for human-engineered dormancy. The ethical earthquake. If immortality is possible, who gets it? Let's step back for a moment and look at the societal implications. If we successfully unlock the secrets of 5,000-year longevity and translate them into human therapies, we are fundamentally altering the human condition.
This technology won't start cheap. It will be the ultimate form of wealth disparity. we could create a world of biological elites, the Methuselah class, who have access to eternal youth, while the rest of humanity continues on the traditional lifespan trajectory.
Think about the implications for career progression, political power, and even creativity. If the same leaders, innovators, and thinkers stay in power for centuries, does society stagnate? If we eliminate the natural turnover of generations, do we lose the fresh perspective that drives cultural evolution?
This is a profound philosophical challenge derived directly from sequencing the DNA of an ancient shrub or a slow-growing coral. The science is moving faster than our ethics, and we need to have these conversations now. I want you to share this video with 3 friends right now who love talking about the future.